I accidentally bought the wrong watch. I thought I was ordering the automatic Hamilton Khaki Field, but instead I accidentally purchased the hand-wound version. It's the mechanical one that you have to wind. I really considered returning it at first, but after having this watch for a while, it completely changed the way that I view mechanical watches and really just collecting watches altogether. Hi everyone, I'm Bianca. I've slowly fallen down the rabbit hole of collecting watches. One of the things I find really interesting is how personal collecting becomes over time. You know, your priorities change, and certain watches, they end up teaching you a lot more than you would expect. So this Hamilton definitely became one of those watches for me. This is the Hamilton Khaki Field in 38 millimeters. It's the hand-wound movement. It's got that field watch style, very military inspired, simple, classic. Honestly, when I first bought this watch, I barely knew anything about watches at all. I was newer to collecting and I thought I ordered the automatic version. I didn't even fully understand the difference yet between automatic and hand-wound watches. So when it arrived and I realized that I had to manually turn that crown every day, I honestly thought maybe I made a mistake. But then I started winding it every morning religiously, and weirdly enough, I really started to love it. There was something about the sound of the movement, the feeling of the crown, that little daily interaction with the watch. All of a sudden, it just made watches feel more emotional and personal than functional for me. I remember sitting at my table, winding the watch in the morning, having a cup of coffee before work, and I realized that this is probably the first time I had ever felt that watches were genuinely interesting to me beyond just looking nice or being functional. That's when I really fell in love with mechanical watches. I completely understand why this watch has so much hype around it. It is beautiful. The brushed case, it looks fantastic. The dial is incredibly clean and legible. It feels very honest and purposeful. There's something very charming about it because it doesn't feel overly polished or flashy. It's just a real world watch. It's something that people can use daily, and for me, the simplicity is why I connected with it, and I'm sure why so many others have connected with it as well. I just think that's the moment really I really started to fall in love with mechanical watches and just watches in general. Over time, this watch taught me a few very important lessons about collecting. Sometimes what sounds romantic in theory isn't always what works best for you long term. As my collection developed, I realized that I'm the type of collector who really likes wearing my watches consistently. I want to keep them in a regular rotation. And once I added another hand-wound movement to my collection, especially my JLC, I really started to realize that winding multiple watches regularly is a lot less magical and a little more like upkeep. It honestly surprised me too, because at first the ritual of winding the watch is exactly what made me fall in love with it in the first place. This watch also taught me another really important lesson, which is just try your watches on in person when possible, especially if you have a smaller wrist like mine. I have a 6-inch wrist for reference, and technically the watch fits me. The lugs don't overhang or anything like that, but proportions are just so much more complicated than measurements on paper, and because of the long watch style lugs, it wears visually a lot larger than expected, especially once that NATO strap comes off. I've realized that I'm just not a huge NATO strap person, and I know that is part of the classic field watch aesthetic, and stylistically it really does fit the watch, but for me it just added a little bit too much bulk. So I do take the NATO strap off, and then when I do, I run into another thing. The lugs are just so much more prominent and visible. Overall, it's just not quite as refined as I imagined it to be when I bought it online. I originally bought this thinking that it was going to be my perfect beater watch, something rugged and carefree that I could just throw on without thinking about it. But in practice, the water resistance, it ends up being much more of a limitation than I expected. In my daily life, I really want to wear the watch and not worry about it. If I'm washing my hands, if it's raining, if it's very humid, just everyday situations. And because it's not especially water resistant, I just found it to be that I was much more cautious than I wanted to be when I was wearing it. It really kind of defeated the purpose of having a true beater for me personally. If I could go back in time, I would think more carefully about what I personally value in a collection. I probably would have leaned more towards something like a diver style watch, or even this Casio that I'm wearing now, something highly water resistant. Practicality eventually does become part of the luxury. But despite all of that, I still think that the Hamilton is one of the most important watches I have ever owned. It's because it introduced me to mechanical watches in the first place. I think every collector probably has a watch like that, a watch that may not perfectly fit your collection forever, but one that's shaped how you collect moving forward. Even though I accidentally bought the wrong watch, I think it ended up teaching me exactly what kind of collector I really am. If you've had a very similar experience, let me know in the comments below what watch was it and what did you gain from that experience. And if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. Bye!